You do not remember the exact moment you decided to stop. There was no announcement. No decision made at a table with a plan. It happened the way most important things happen. Quietly and then completely. Until one day you realized you had not told anyone a real number in months, and the silence felt like the smartest thing you had ever done. But before the silence there was the telling. And the telling is where the story actually starts. You told people when you were broke because broke people always talk about money. Not because they want to, but because money is the weather at that level. It is the first thing and the last thing. And the thing underneath every other thing. You talked about it the way people talk about a leak in the ceiling. Not proudly. Just constantly. Because it was always there. You told people when you got your first real job. The salary felt enormous even though it was not. You told your mother first. Then your best friend. Then more people than you should have, because the number felt like proof of something. And you needed witnesses to the proof. You needed someone else to confirm that the number was real. And that you had earned it, and that the years of trying had finally produced something you could point to. The reactions were warm. They were proud of you. They said you deserve it and well done, and I always knew you would. And you believed all of it because you wanted to. And because nothing had happened yet to teach you the difference between the warmth that is real and the warmth that is attached to a number. Then the number grew. Not immediately. Not the way movies show it. Slowly, and then faster, and then one day you looked at your account and the number was different. In a way that changed the texture of the room. You were standing in. And you told people. You told them because that is what you do. That is what you had always done. You told them, and the reactions were warm again, but this time the warmth had a different quality to it. Something underneath it. Something you could not name at first, but that you felt in the pauses. In the way the conversation moved after you said the number. In the way people looked at each other for just a fraction of a second before they looked back at you. The first thing you noticed was the advice. People who had never discussed money seriously in their lives suddenly had opinions about what you should do with yours. Invest in this. Put it here. Have you thought about that? People who carried credit card balances and had no savings and had never once talked to you about money before the number changed were now confidently telling you what to do with yours. You listened the first few times. You nodded. You said, that is interesting and I will look into that. Because you were still operating by the old rules. The rules where information about your finances was neutral. Where sharing the number was just sharing a fact. Where people responded to the fact. And not to what the fact implied. About what you could do for them. Then came the requests. Not immediately. Not from everyone. But steadily, the way water finds a crack in a wall. The requests started arriving. Small ones wrapped in warmth. Casual ones dropped into normal conversations. You know, if you ever wanted to invest in something like this. You know, I have been thinking about this idea, I think you would be perfect for it. You know, just between us, if you could help with something small. And here is the thing about those requests. Most of the people making them were not bad people. They were not calculating or cruel. They were just people who had updated their understanding of who you were based on a number and were responding to the updated version of you in the most natural way available to them, but you felt it. You felt the difference between being talked to and being accessed. Between someone asking how you are and someone asking because they want something from the person they have now decided you are. Between the conversations you had at 22. When you had nothing, in the conversations you were having now, and the specific way the texture of them had changed in ways that only you could feel because you were the only one who had been in both versions of the conversation. So you started being careful. Not dishonest. Careful. You stopped volunteering the number. You stopped confirming it when people fished. You learned to give non-answers that were true but incomplete. You are doing okay. Things are going well. Work is good. The kind of answers that are accurate but give nothing specific to respond to. Nothing to attach a request to. Nothing to change the temperature of the room. And something unexpected happened. The conversations got better. Not all of them. But the ones that stayed. The ones that survived the removal of the number from the equation. Those conversations became something they had not been before. Cleaner. More direct. More about the actual content of your life rather than the numerical summary of it. More like the conversations you had at 22. When you had nothing and everything was just about who you were and what you thought and what you were trying to do. You started to understand something about money. And silence that nobody had ever explained to you. The number does not just affect how people treat you. It affects what they say to you. What they tell you. What they feel safe saying in front of someone who has a certain amount. People edit themselves around wealth. They perform around it. They become slightly different versions of themselves because the number implies things about what you might think of them. What you might offer. What might be possible now that you are in the room with this number attached to you. When you remove the number from the conversation, you get the unedited version. And the unedited version is almost always more interesting, more honest, and more worth your time. You lost some people when you stopped telling. Not dramatically. Nobody said they were leaving because you had stopped sharing financial updates. But you felt the pulling away. The people whose interest in you had been connected to the interest of knowing the number. The ones whose warmth had a current running through it. The current of access, of possibility. Of what knowing you at this level might produce for them. When the number stopped being visible, the current had nothing to flow toward. And the warmth, over time, quietly withdrew. You let it go. Not because you did not care. Because you had started to understand that the warmth that withdraws when the number is hidden was never really about you. It was about the number. And the number is real and yours and important, but it is not who you are. And any warmth that cannot survive the absence of it was never the kind of warmth worth keeping. The people who stayed surprised you. Some of them you expected. The ones who had known you before everything. Who had sat with you in the years. When the number was small and said nothing about the number because the number was beside the point. Those people stayed and their staying felt like what it had always felt like. But some of them you did not expect. New people. People you had met after the number changed. People who, by all logic, should have known you only as the version with the larger account. And yet they treated you the same way the old ones did. Not because they did not know. But because they did not care. Because they were talking to you. Not to what you represented. And the difference between those two things is the only thing that actually matters in a room. You became very good at telling the difference quickly. Not because you are suspicious of people. Because you have learned that the way someone talks to you in the first 10 minutes, before they have found out anything about your financial situation, is the most honest version of how they will always talk to you. Everything after the number is discovered is a variation on a theme. But the first 10 minutes are pure. They are the unedited draft. And you read them now the way you once read contract terms. Carefully, looking for what is actually being offered. The silence about money is not bitterness. Let that be clear. It is not a wall. It is not armor against a world you have decided is corrupt or transactional or not worth trusting. It is something quieter and more considered than that. It is the understanding that the number is yours. That it belongs to you the way your thoughts belong to you. Not hidden from shame, not protected from theft. But private in the way that things which are entirely and completely yours are allowed to be private. You work for it. You built it. You made the decisions and bore the cost and stayed in when everyone else went out and said no. When you wanted to say yes and held on. When everything was telling you to let go. The number is the residue of all of that. It is not a trophy to display. It is not a proof to offer. It is the quiet record of a series of private decisions made across a long time. And some things are allowed to be quiet. Somewhere right now someone is telling people their salary. They just got a raise and the number feels like proof. And they need witnesses to the proof the way you once did. They are going to learn something in the next few years. Not from a teacher and not from a book, but from the specific education of watching how rooms change when a number enters them. From the requests that arrive wrapped in warmth. From the advice given by people with no expertise. From the conversations that shift in temperature. The moment the number is out there in the open, they are going to learn what you learned. That the most powerful thing you can do with a number is choose who gets to see it. And most people do not deserve to see it. Not because they are bad. Because the number is not the point. You are the point. And any room that cannot hold you without the number is not a room worth performing in. Cold ledger. The wealth they never show you.